So I recently shot a short cinematic portrait video, Spring Feelings, and if you haven't seen it guys, I'm gonna link it up here, dive over, have a look. Today we're gonna talk about the Fujifilm X-T4 and my movie settings to get the best quality out of it. For every new face on the channel, I'm Florian, good to see you guys. Thanks for subscribing, great to have you on board. So without further saying, let's dive straight into it. Okay guys, here we go. Fujifilm X-T4, and then let's talk about my movie settings, what I use on average to shoot what I shoot, or to vlog, or to do the reviews. So we're starting off and shooting completely manually again, so make sure your camera will be or is fully set to manual, that we can program everything how we want to have it. So my movie mode is 16:9, 24 frames per second by a bitrate of 200. I just record 200 because I think the files of 400 bitrate are just too big. And for my personal or current needs, a bitrate of 200 is absolutely fine. So we're shooting 4K, 16:9, 24 frames per second by a bitrate of 200 on average. Sometimes I bump it up to 60 frames per second or even 120 frames per second slow motion. Depends what I want to shoot, if I want to slow it down or if I just do a tutorial like we do right now, then we're just shooting 24 frames per second. So then my file size is MOV H.265, the biggest file size I can record with the Fujifilm X-T4 to get the best quality and dynamic range you can get out of a camera. We're recording internally 420 10-bit color, whilst we could record to an external monitor, also 422 10-bit. However, I don't have an external recorder currently that I could record the higher color profile. But the color profile 420 10-bit is definitely fantastic and gives you enough color detail to color grade after in post. Then going back, movie compression is long GOP, full high speed recording as we mentioned already. Usually if I want to shoot slow motion, I shoot 120 frames per second. So 24 frames per second, 120 frames per second. I think it works well for my needs. I don't see much need to pop or to bump up the slow motion to 240 frames per second, which I could if I want to. But I think 120 frames per second so far did well for my needs. So usually if I shoot slow motion, I shoot 120 frames per second slow motion by 24 frames per second. So basically a 5 times slow motion. Then we're going back to the recording format. Usually I shoot F-Log. Now and then I do shoot also Eterna, so basically my recording is set to F-Log for HDMI and SD card internally. Then my movie output is both set to 4K as well. My full HD movie output is set to full HD. And then coming down to 4K HDMI standby quality is set to 4K as well. HDMI record control is set to on. And then here it comes, IBIS. I usually got the IBIS and the OIS on because I shoot on a 18:55, 2.8 to 4. So if I have IBIS on, the OIS needs to be on, or the OIS is on and the IBIS needs to be on. You can't trigger them or switch them independently off. The IS boost mode I usually leave off. I'm not a big fan of it. So as mentioned, the IS mode or boost mode is off usually. I'm not a big fan of it because it doesn't look right It's good for static handheld stuff and you don't move really much and you just want to have someone running by or whatsoever, then perhaps the boost mode is nice, but for my personal needs I don't like it. It just looks very unnatural. My zebra settings are off because I use the F-Log view assist, which is definitely more helpful than having the zebra sometimes. If you ask me, just seeing the color profile on your display gives you a very good understanding of how your end picture will look like, and if you're overexposed or underexposed, you can judge very well on the F-Log view assist as well. Therefore, we can overjump this, and then basically we're coming down to the QI. My white balance, I do set sometimes by myself. I sometimes use the auto white balance. It really depends on situation. Like if I'm shooting this tutorial here right now, then I set my white balance. If I'm outside and I can judge the weather enough to say, okay, there won't be any white shifts, then I set my white balance by myself as well. But also the programmed white balance features from a Fujifilm X-T4 are very, very good. So if you would use a pre-programmed white balance setting, there's nothing wrong with it, and at the end of the day you could still fix it in post if you need to. However, the white balance programs which Fujifilm put into the X-T4 are very, very nice and very reliable as well. So because we're shooting F-Log, we don't change our dynamic range or tone curve or color. Sharpness I left to 0 because I think the sharpness which comes out of a sensor from a Fujifilm X-T4 with the native lenses are very, very good. High ISO noise reduction I leave off as well. I usually do a bit of noise reduction in post if I need to. And then we coming already down to autofocus settings, which my movie autofocus mode is set to multi because let's say we would move the hands, we want to have the hands in focus and it goes back to the camera. So the average, I have it to multi because you move around a bit, so you always stay in focus. If you need to and you would have a subject which doesn't move much, if you shoot an interview or so, you could set it to area, put the cube onto his face or her face and then record the interview if you wanted to. But then also if you have it set on multi, you could add a face detection onto the autofocus as well, and your face will be always in focus. I tweaked the autofocus custom settings a bit and put my tracking sensitivity +2 and my autofocus speed +2 as well. So simple as that. I do like a bit more quick focus between, let's say, my face, or I would crop this dead card, show you the dead card, and it jumps straight back to the camera. I don't like it too quick, I don't like it too slow. So having the in-between setting I think works fine for my needs, and it did work well on my last shoot as well. So coming down to what else is important. Face detection I do use sometimes I leave it off. Really depends on what you want to shoot. If you do a vlog and you want to make sure that your face is always in focus, it's probably beneficial to have it set to onto your face or to one eye. Elsewise, I think a wide focus tracking or multi-tracking focus is absolutely fine as well. And if you have your face in front of the camera, then that's the biggest subject to focus on and there's barely any focus shift. So the focus system so far from a Fujifilm X-T4 definitely does a great job. And there have been rumors or basically people saying that you can't rely on a Fujifilm X-T4 for filming. There's too much hand and the focus sometimes shifts and swaps from your face to the background. Yes, of course, sometimes it can happen for whatever reason that the focus shifts and it's not anymore on a camera and it's on your hand. But in general, I think that the autofocus from a Fujifilm X-T4 is definitely very reliable. Then if we would shoot manual focus, then I got the peak set to red high that I could, if I wanted to, manually focus. Focus check is off. Instant autofocus settings is autofocus settings single. And then let's see, coming down to the audio settings. Because I'm using an external mic, I did set my external mic adjustments to manual and turned it down to minus 13.5 decibels. And I think minus 13.5 is just about the right decibels set for this mic. Sometimes I needed to adjust it to minus 15 decibels as well, but on average I have it on minus 13.5 decibels. Then all other settings pretty much I leave off from audio settings and do it in post, whatever I need to do. Like my mic level limiter is on, wind filter is off, low cut filter is off, my headphone volume is set to 10, even if I barely use any headphones, but having a loud output if you would use headphones to hear your audio is definitely beneficial. And basically that's it, guys. This is what I use. And those are my movie settings, guys. Very simple, very easy, and very easy to use. What is very important for myself. I like it simple, easy. I like to dive in the menus, switch the settings, go back out and keep filming. So let's break it down. Average usual filming settings is 16:9 4K 24 frames per second at bitrate of 200. Gives you a fantastic color profile. You could shoot internal simulations if you wanted to, Eterna or classic chrome, whatever you wanted to shoot, you can adjust them and you can tweak the colors as well. And then for slow motion, usually I use 120 frames per second. Gives me 5 times slow motion, which I think for my personal needs is absolutely fantastic. And I didn't see many times the need to bump it up to 240 frames per second. But having the option 240 frames per second is definitely nice, and the quality you get out of 120 frames per second is fantastic. So guys, with that said, very simple, very easy, a quick breakdown today what I use on settings when I film to get the best quality out of a Fujifilm X-T4. And guys, if you got any question, leave them down in the comments, let me know what you think, if this was helpful or not. And with that said, guys, I'm gonna see you, my friend, very soon in the next video. Cheers, guys.